Who are the invisible owners of the global banking system? This is not merely history, it is the definitive code of the world's largest financial exploitation. How did a people, stripped entirely of their land, sovereign army, and political state, manage to establish and consolidate control over the greatest accumulation of wealth and influence on the entire planet? The pervasive rumors and enduring narratives surrounding their economic success, often swiftly dismissed as mere conspiracy theories, demand a rigorous and unflinching historical inquiry. We are here to meticulously uncover the secret economic code that fundamentally reshaped the course of world history, essentially creating the blueprints for modern central banking, perpetually financing global and devastating wars, and currently maintaining influence over high-level international politics from behind a carefully constructed veil. The profound genesis of this unique and unprecedented economic trajectory was tragically traumatic, commencing with the brutal destruction of the Second Temple and the central city of Jerusalem around 70 AD by the massive Roman Empire. This catastrophic event was far more than a simple military defeat. It represented a complete socio-economic uprooting. It ruthlessly stripped away a nation's dependence on fixed physical assets like land and traditional agricultural production, forcefully compelling the Jewish people to redirect their entire existence toward two abstract, highly mobile, and infinitely more powerful forms of wealth: liquid capital and profound intellectual knowledge. What essential resources did an exiled, scattered people need to not only survive, but also to thrive and accumulate power in hostile, frequently and aggressively anti-Semitic environments across the globe? Traditional sources of power, such as widespread land ownership, career military service, and entrenched positions within the feudal aristocracy, were systematically and legally closed off to them by state edict. They were thus forced to invest exclusively in the only assets that were effortlessly transportable across political borders and virtually impossible for rapacious or arbitrary rulers to suddenly confiscate: currency, easily hidden precious metals, and market intelligence residing solely in the human mind. This painful necessity over the span of many centuries was meticulously transformed into an unmatched comparative advantage. The Christian theological prohibition against usury, or the charging of interest on loans among fellow Christians, inadvertently cleaved open a massive and essential economic void. The business of high-interest money lending and the trade of high-value, non-perishable goods, such as jewelry and luxury textiles, became an economically vital but socially despised domain, which was aggressively imposed upon Jews in the majority of closed medieval societies. This constraint, while predictably breeding intense local resentment and tragically leading to waves of horrific persecution, strategically placed them at the absolute nexus of the nascent economic system. On one side, the political and military power brokers, kings, noble houses, and eventually centralized states, were perpetually desperate for immediate capital to fund their incessant military campaigns and sustain their extravagant courtly lifestyles. On the other, the only organized, trustworthy group with the international network and financial expertise to reliably provide this vital capital was the Jewish diaspora. This forced specialization did not simply create reluctant bankers. It forged them into indispensable architects of early international commerce. Across the vast, complex trade networks stretching from the Mediterranean to the distant fringes of the Silk Road, they established a cohesive web of merchants bound not just by shared religious creed, but by an ironclad, culturally reinforced standard of commercial trust. This enduring, powerful trust network, operating entirely independently of the whims of fickle state laws and volatile political turbulence, successfully birthed an alternative, proto-global economic system that guaranteed a superior, swift, and uninterrupted flow of both capital and absolutely vital market intelligence. We have successfully analyzed their financial agility and their early dominance in trade, but the deeper, more profound question remains: what is the true origin of their statistically demonstrated intellectual superiority? When we critically observe global academic and economic data, particularly the highly disproportionate success rates achieved in the Nobel Prizes across virtually all scientific and economic fields, should this be dismissed as a mere statistical fluctuation? Or is it compelling evidence of a forbidden intellectual code that the Jewish culture has rigorously and consciously cultivated over many millennia? The undeniable key to unlocking this crucial secret lies not in genetics, but within the core and central text of their rabbinic tradition, the Talmud. In Jewish culture, education, or Torah study, is fundamentally regarded as superior to all other material pursuits, including the pursuit of wealth itself. The age-old tradition of studying the Talmud is never a passive reading assignment. It is an intense, communal, lifelong practice of dialectical debate, persistent questioning, and relentless intellectual interrogation. Instead of seeking a single, final, universally accepted correct answer, the student is meticulously trained to deeply analyze, cross-reference, and synthesize conflicting interpretations, logical contradictions, and highly multifaceted arguments spanning centuries of scholarship. This religious intellectual imperative effectively serves as an extreme, compulsory cognitive training program, powerfully fostering the inherent ability for critical thinking, highly abstract problem solving, and nonlinear, multidimensional thought. This unique, specialized mental architecture made them uniquely and powerfully adept professionals, often light years ahead of their national competitors, in all fields requiring complex systemic understanding, from the most intricate financial derivatives and challenging legal texts to groundbreaking scientific theories. It was, in essence, a high-intelligence exercise spanning millennia, firmly integrated into the social and religious contract. This compulsory intellectual investment also provided the critical human capital necessary for the dramatic rise of modern capitalism. Finance is not a simple exchange. It is the meticulous art of calculating complex, future-oriented risks and making highly accurate predictions. The Talmudic mind, intrinsically accustomed to navigating the labyrinth of abstract thought, was naturally and highly inclined toward this speculative, future-focused discipline. Furthermore, the trauma of the diaspora inadvertently forged another critical, powerful factor: the global information monopoly. This highly organized and trustworthy web ensured a flow of market intelligence that local competitors, constrained by slow national postal services and borders, could only dream of. A Jewish merchant in Venice could often receive word of a change in London's gold reserves or critical political instability in the Spanish court far quicker than any local Gentile rival. Information is power, and the Jewish network utilized this power on a specialized, hidden frequency, operating outside the sluggish control of local governmental authorities. Was this early proprietary information flow an elemental and primitive version of modern insider trading and stock market manipulation? Based on this, let's ask, did these powerful cultural values and insistence on education pass down through the family, or the necessity to fill the gaps created by state policies influence the economic success of the Jewish people more? Was this intellectual accumulation a cultural rule, or a superior evolutionary adaptation developed for survival? What is your opinion? The saga of the Rothschild dynasty is not just a footnote in European banking. It is the undisputed origin story of global political manipulation and financial influence. They were the first financial architects to precisely identify and exploit the fundamental and permanent weakness of the modern nation-state: the insatiable need to finance war. Kings and rapidly emerging states were perpetually and desperately short of staggering amounts of capital required to fund their devastating continuous military campaigns and maintain their extravagant royal expenditures. Critically, no other group possessed the financial genius, the liquid capital reserves, or the international infrastructure required to reliably provide this credit on the necessary scale except the Jewish court bankers. This unique economic leverage transformed a scattered, often persecuted, exiled people into the indispensable financial partners of Europe's most powerful sovereign rulers. Their subsequent meteoric rise to prominence marks the definitive historical moment where the abstract, mobile power of money irrevocably surpassed the traditional fixed power of the sword and the land. These court bankers were far more than simple lenders. They fundamentally integrated themselves into the operational machinery of the state, personally managing royal treasuries, organizing complex tax collection systems, and acting as crucial financial and diplomatic intermediaries. This intimate role guaranteed them not only immense personal wealth, but also political immunity and an enormous, effectively untouchable sphere of influence. Though they inevitably faced the violent resentment of the local populace, financial crises reliably rendered them the central figures before whom even the proudest monarchs were forced to kneel. The organizational masterstroke of the Rothschild family was establishing the first true multinational financial empire, a network of 5 integrated brotherhoods across Europe's major capitals, which successfully transcended all national boundaries. The Waterloo Legend. The infamous story that Nathan Rothschild learned the decisive outcome of the Battle of Waterloo. Hours ahead of all official government channels, using that superior intelligence to manipulate the British bond market, deliberately crashing the price and then buying back colossal amounts at a fraction of the cost, is the defining true-life parable of their informational power and calculated risk-taking. This event forces the question: were their actions simply shrewd financial planning or an early demonstration of using immense capital to actively steer states and political outcomes for their own benefit? These dynasties single-handedly authored modern banking, pioneering the concepts of international sovereign debt, bond issuance, complex risk management, and the very blueprints for modern central banking. Their unparalleled early financial experience is indelibly coded into the foundational DNA of modern global capitalism. But did this financial power have an underlying religious ethical justification? The Jewish concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world, expresses the profound theological responsibility to actively make the world a better place. While this concept is often benignly linked to modern philanthropy, some prominent critics allege that this colossal financial power has been aggressively used, often under the moral cloak of tikkun olam, to strategically manipulate the international political and economic flows towards a specific predetermined global vision. How closely does this allegation align with the established mechanics of historical conspiracy theories? Here lies the critical question where conspiracy theories find fertile ground. Did this unique power of massive capital merely finance states, wars, and politics? Or did it assertively steer them like an invisible hand for its own strategic benefit? How much weight does this formidable financial power carry in the critical political decisions around the world? Is this a lobbying power, or is it a fully consolidated global monopoly? At the conclusive end of this epic historical and economic inquiry, we must finally and definitively address the most sensitive question. What is the ultimate, non-negotiable secret behind their sustained, disproportionate success? Is the answer rooted in race, genetics, or is it a meticulously learned, culturally ingrained superiority? The verifiable answer is that this extraordinary success is not attributable to a single monolithic genetic factor. It is the synergistic culmination of thousands of years of systematic cultural adaptation, unparalleled and compulsory intellectual investment, and brutal, forced evolutionary pressure. Judaism functions not as a race in the biological or anthropological sense, but as an exceptionally robust social and educational system built upon shared faith, a common historical narrative, and rigorous intellectual practice. This powerful system is upheld by two critical interlocking religious ethical pillars. The first is Tzedakah, charity, justice, the profound religious obligation of every member to actively contribute to the economic and social welfare of the entire community. This mandate effectively created a mechanism for compulsory wealth transfer and a common investment pool, significantly mitigating the devastating risks of individual financial failure. The second is Pikuach Nefesh, preservation of life, the central religious principle that the sanctity of human life supersedes almost all other laws. This principle elevated intellectual pursuits and economic trade to an existential means of preserving life and community under threat. Survival under persistent existential threat necessitated constantly calculating catastrophic risks and meticulously planning for the distant future. This pragmatic long-term mindset forms the foundational core of modern entrepreneurship and venture capital philosophies. This exceptional level of success was ironically reinforced and fueled by constant exclusion and anti-Semitism. A community placed under continuous severe oppression had no choice but to hyper-optimize its internal solidarity and hyper-focus on intellectual achievement as a superior, non-physical adaptation mechanism. The highly disproportionate success in prestigious accolades like the Nobel Prizes stands as concrete, quantifiable evidence of this sustained cultural investment. They were among the first to fully grasp the profound and lasting power of liquid, non-territorial, and internationally networked capital, which remains, in the modern era, the most valuable and powerful asset in the world. The inescapable negative consequence of this success has always been the proliferation of anti-Semitism and intricate conspiracy theories. Where competitors fail to explain their own economic shortcomings, it becomes psychologically easier to label superior success as a hidden plan or an evil global monopoly. This phenomenon is the tragic recurring historical pattern of how a historically marginalized group's necessary survival mechanism is consistently distorted and perceived as an existential threat by its adversaries. However, history offers us one clear, unwavering lesson. Capital, specialized knowledge, and deep networks are fundamentally more potent and enduring than the fleeting power of the sword and the land. This enduring success is the result of a rational, highly organized, and culturally driven struggle against the most difficult historical conditions. In your opinion, can this potent cultural code that played a key role in the success of the Jewish people, intense education, tzedakah, aggressive risk management, be copied by other ethnic groups or societies in the modern world, achieving a similar level of economic success? Or is this success a non-replicable phenomenon created only by the unique pressures,